very far back with. Formerly from New Jersey, knew him in the early 2000s, and now lives in the Orlando area.
He's got a challenge in front of him. We'll see what he can do. We'll start off with the Mystic Monastery as round number 6 is underway here from Miami. Watanabe taking a long look at his hand. Looks like he's going to start off with a Shivan Reef, and he'll pass the turn back over to Reilly. Reilly will draw. It's a Plains. He also has a Temple of Triumph in hand. There is a Temple. He will scry. Take a look at the top card. Give it a thought. He'll keep that. We're going to go back Yuuya's way. He'll take a draw. Copy a Citadel Siege. He'll play a Plains. There's a Soulfire Grandmaster. Pass the turn back. Reilly will untap. He'll take a draw step. He left this card on top. It was a copy of Goblin Rabblemaster. Soulfire Grandmaster starting to pick up in popularity.
Yeah, and you can see why Wild Slash is so popular right now in the format. If Michael had Wild Slash there to break serve and open up a path for the Goblin Rabblemaster, he could really push ahead as early as turn 3. That said, he's likely going to have to choose between committing a threat to the table or removing Soulfire Grandmaster.
Rabblemaster is going to happen post-combat, so that the Goblin token doesn't run in to the Soulfire Grandmaster and gain you 2 life.
And the big question every time you see an Ascendancy deck in action is, does the pilot feel like they have an opportunity to play it? Is the board stable enough? Because you really have to take a deep breath and take a turn off. Once you get past that, the game gets so much easier from there. But I don't know if Yuuya is going to want to play it right now in lieu of doing something like using Stoke the Flames to get rid of the Rabblemaster, try to get to a stable board perhaps next turn.
It does have 2 copies of Jeskai Ascendancy in hand right now, but as you mentioned, Stoke the Flames is certainly an option, and it's a lifelink Stoke the Flames. So he's going to deal 4 damage to the Rabblemaster. He's going to gain 4 life, go up to 24. Now the Rabblemaster's off the table, and his life total is a little bit healthier now.
And even if Michael adds something to the board this turn, with the extra little chunk of life that he just got, you might see him deploy the Ascendancy.
There's another Rabblemaster, which means the Goblin token is going to be coming along with it. And into the red zone, we're going to go. We'll head back Watanabe's way. He'll take a draw. It's a copy of Hordeling Outburst. Pretty good draw there for Yuuya.
This pairs very nicely with the other Stoke in his hand.
Sure does. You're just going to have to take 2 to cast that. 3 Goblin tokens incoming.
It's funny because the initial forays of the set, Favorite Forge and Standard, felt like Soulfire Grandmaster was this card that everyone was trying to build around. And we didn't see a lot of success, and now it feels like it's all over the place and doing a lot of work this game. Even without the rebuy ability being used, it's giving Yuuya a lot of life to play with here. Getting to a spot where he can cast Ascendancy even if Reilly has a bit of a board.
You know, just there's so much text on that card. You know, 2 mana 2/2 with lifelink. Your spells, your instant and sorcery get lifelink, which matters a little bit. And then of course the 3rd line of text being able to rebuy that. It just felt like, you know, it's kind of inevitable that someone's going to figure out the best place to use this. Ben Stark, great start last weekend, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago in Memphis when he got 2nd place with Red White Aggro. Now Yuuya's employing that card here again. In the previous tokens deck, he was playing Seeker of the Way. He's not anymore.
Right, and we saw some people for a while say cut one of the Seekers for 1 Soulfire Grandmaster. We're seeing a lot more 4-ofs in these decks now.
Reilly going to play Lightning Strike. He'll go after Soulfire Grandmaster. This will be a Stoke the Flames. It's going to go after the Rabblemaster. Or at least it's going to try. Perhaps he has a Valor Stance, and he does. So he is still going to gain its 4 life. But Valor Stance is going to save the Goblin Rabblemaster.
Pretty good spot there. And again, you know, as long as Michael can keep doing these kind of exchanges, it's hard for Yuuya to take the turn off. It's felt like he's been close a couple times here to being able to deploy the Ascendancy, but if Yuuya doesn't draw a land next turn, it still might be a little hairy to play a Jeskai Ascendancy.
The Goblins are attacking. So a healthy amount of damage will come through here. It'll be 6 of it. Watanabe down to 17. He'll untap his 3 Goblins. And we'll head back his way. We'll take a draw. It's copy of Goblin Rabblemaster for him.
And I don't know if he wants to get in that kind of race right now.
And this certainly does get interesting, how he wants to play this game. Does have a copy of Raise the Alarm in hand as well. What he doesn't have is the 4th land. If he wants to deploy Jeskai Ascendancy, he'll have to take 2 damage to do so.
It's a big cost. It's a whole turn off, and it's 2 points of damage.
He's also stuck with Citadel Siege in hand at this point that he can't cast.
He has the option instead to just raise the alarm and try to block out of next turn, because if you can get the Rabble Master off the table, it becomes much easier. But I believe at this point he is out of clean removal for it. So very complicated turn. There's a lot of risks on both sides for whatever play Yuuya goes for. It looks like we're going to be seeing an ascendancy here momentarily.
Yep, he'll have to take 2, as I mentioned, to cast it. He's down at 15. We're heading back Reilly's way. So Reilly with 2 Goblin tokens and a Goblin Rabble Master. Had a good exchange last turn in being able to save his Rabble Master with Valor Stance from Stoke the Flames. But now he's really got to get the ball moving, because the longer the game goes, the tougher it gets.
Yeah. Though, the upshot of it is Yuuya probably has to do some amount of blocking this turn. I don't think he can just take the whole hit, because the aggro deck is capable of burning you out from the spot. And if Yuuya loses some of his tokens here in all of this, then it means the ascendancy doesn't matter just yet.
Here's a Temple. Top card's going to go to the bottom.
I really like what, Michael's sort of demeanor and pace of play here. He's a pretty excitable person. And I think in matches like this, when you're playing against, someone of Yuuya's caliber and reputation, it's very easy to get ahead of yourself. And you can tell that he's just kind of taking his time here. Doesn't want to rush anything.
I always find matches like this so interesting because players react differently when they're playing against someone of this caliber. Reilly's been around for a really long time. He knows why he's in a feature match. It's not because of him. It's because the other guy on the other side of the table. And he's sitting at 5-0. And if he wins this tournament, if he wins this round, this is a big win for his tournament.
Yeah, he goes to 6-0. He's a win away from making the second day, and a huge win. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This would be a big upset for Michael if he could pull it off.
Here are the attacks. Rabble Master's going to hang back on defense. The 3 tokens are going to come in.
Now, this is a play, I don't know exactly what's in Michael's hand, but I think in this kind of spot, you are almost compelled to attack with the Rabble Master no matter what because of the ascendancy in play.
Well, that post siege is certainly interesting. And cons or dragons is the question. It'll be cons, so it's going to be a draw engine here. Battlefield forward's the draw.
I think that if you're able to get a chump block out of Yuuya, that's a victory, and if you're able to get a double block, that's great too.
You might be okay with that too, yeah.
Right, the 3 tokens now in play alongside the ascendancy gives Yuuya a lot of control over attacking and blocking for the remainder of the game. So I can understand you don't want to lose your Rabble Master there, but I think Michael might have been better served. Get the Rabble Master in, and if you get any sort of trade or chump block out of it, that's a success. And if Yuuya doesn't block at all, well, that's 5 points of damage coming across, which is really valuable here too.
Because now things get scary the rest of the way. If Yuuya just passes with 4 mana up, your attacks are, you're at the very least very scared.
Right.
What you can do. Now, if that siege is set on dragons, maybe you don't care as much. But now this situation happens.
Right, now you're looking at attack here, and this attack indicates, most likely, that you has some sort of spell to untap and block with.
You're not blocking. Your Rabble Master's not blocking a token there.
Well, if you didn't attack last turn, you're certainly not blocking with it now, because you could have gotten 2 tokens last turn, and now you're only looking at 1.
Seeker of the Way is going to be the revealed outpost siege. Reilly will draw for the turn. Here's 4 mana. Let's make it 5. Maybe Storm Breath time? The skies are pretty safe. There is the dragon. Watanabe looks like he may have a response. Now, Storm Breath is actually a pretty good card against his deck.
Yeah, he's already down 2 copies of Stoke the Flames. His deck does not really generate any flyers, near as I can tell.
He will start with a copy of Raise the Alarm, which will trigger the Ascendancy, so we'll have some things happen here. Wild Slash is the draw. So it's time for Watanabe to discard. Rabble Master, Wild Slash, Citadel Siege, all options to discard along with another copy of Jeskai Ascendancy. We'll have 2 soldiers come in here from the Raise the Alarm momentarily as well. And we can't forget that those Goblin tokens are 2/2s now, thanks to Jeskai Ascendancy. Watanabe going to discard Goblin Rabble Master. Raise the Alarm is going to resolve. Again, tokens are 2/2s now. Going to need some soldier tokens here in just a moment.
Yeah, with protection from color factor and, you know, various convoke cards, it is important to track correctly what are the soldiers and what are the goblins.
And there are the soldiers.
Now you can see sort of the jam here with that Rabble Master. These tokens don't have a lot of value.
And they just have to come in.
Yeah, 3 of them get swallowed up, and the 4th one also does, assuming that Yuuya has any spell to cast.
And now it might be time for the Rabble Master to come in. But as you kind of alluded to last turn, you know, this turn of doing it is much worse than the previous one.
Right, exactly. Last turn he was looking at a chump block or removing 2 tokens. Now he's looking at 1 token to trade or a chump block. Reilly does get 1 extra token out of the deal, but again, if there's only 1 goblin in play instead of 3, I think this is just generally a better spot for Reilly to be in.
What's not even going to line his blocks up here. And one thing to keep in mind, too, that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Yuuya says, okay, I'm going to take some amount of this damage and try to kill you on a counter swing.
Exactly.
That's not impossible.
Remember, 3 of these tokens are just free for you to block.
Yep.
They're 1/1s against 2/2s. And Yuuya does have a Wild Slash in his hand. So if he can if he can go to his turn with 5 tokens and put together 1 more spell, that's 17 points of damage.
Yep. So he's happy with the blocks like this. Reilly will lose all of that stuff. 6 points of damage comes across. Watanabe's down to 6. We're heading back Yuuya's way. He'll quickly draw a card. Copy of Treasure Cruise is a big one.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the path to lethal, potentially.
Yep, because here's an Ascendancy. And that'll trigger. Draw and discard. Treasure Cruise will get discarded.
Yeah, I think the Wild Slash just puts together lethal discard.
All the creatures are 4/4s at this point now. The first Ascendancy that was cast triggers, gives everything +1/+1. They become 2/2s. You play a Wild Slash, everything gets +2/+2. That's 16. Wild Slash is 17 and 18.
And yeah, I think he's just got it.
Yep.
And going back to that Rabble Master attack, or the one he elected not to make now.
That's the big one now.
Yeah.
Because if he has 2 less tokens, the way the game goes is much different.
Or he's down, or he takes 5 last on the turn where Reilly elected not to attack.
Yep.
You use that 3 right now, so that damage would have been a big deal.
And you see the lands that Yuuya has in play, Shift and Reef and 2 copies of Battlefield Forge. Those things aren't tapping for colorless mana in this situation, that's for sure.
Yeah, so 16 + 2.
Yeah, Reilly's going to do the math. That is 18. That is going to get the job done. Yuuya Watanabe is going to win game number 1 here over Michael Reilly. Jeskai tokens up a game here over Jeskai aggro. That means we're going to go to the sideboards. We'll start with Reilly and his 4 copies of Disdainful Stroke, 3 copies of Anger of the Gods, 2 Bramaz, King of Rescos, 2 Abzan Advantage, an Elspeth Sun's Champion, a Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker, and Hostilities, and a single Glare of Heresy.
This is a really solid sideboard for Michael in the matchup here. He can convert more or less into a control deck. I like bringing in Anger of the Gods, Bramazes, Abzan Advantage. You can bring in the Planeswalkers, the Glare of Heresy, the End Hostilities, and just try to go way bigger. Some more durable threats, some sweepers. A really solid post-board package here. If Michael can win the fight over Ascendancy, and he's got some tools to do that, the rest of his deck can handle the tokens. It's just Ascendancy went unchecked that game, and even for the few turns it was in play, did too much.
What do we see on Yuuya's side?
A Glare of Heresy, 2 copies of Negate, 2 copies of Valorous Stance, 3 Disdainful Stroke, 3 copies of Anger of the Gods, 2 copies of Outpost Siege, 2 copies of Sarkhan. So there's some pretty obvious ones here, the Glare of Heresy and the 2 copies of Negate. Once you get past that, the question is how big does Yuuya really want to go? He can go to something like Outpost Siege and Sarkhan to try to outlast Reilly, try to weather the storm of removal. The 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke and the 2 Valorous Stances also fit in that package. So I think he can go anywhere from sideboarding 3 cards to sideboarding closer to 10.
We will see what he elects to do here for game number 2. Reilly will be on the play. And we'll see if he can get off to a more aggressive start. A card like Mantis Rider can be very good, and Watanabe did not see Mantis Rider. It's a card that Reilly has 4 copies of.
Once you see Storm Breath Dragon, usually that indicates they're not on the token strategy, because there's a lot of mana for something that doesn't trigger Ascendancy and that doesn't play particularly well with Ascendancy. So I think Yuuya can deduce he's more likely on some sort of Mantis Rider, Ash Cloud Phoenix style deck rather than the Ascendancy token build.
Well, we do have another Dragon Stark Hero card to talk about here. One that I dedicate to you. One that I imagine you'll be casting at some point. I know you love Fire Drake Crusader, so that means you have to love Zergo Bell Striker, right? It's basically a Subaru.
Yeah, it's pretty close. So it's legendary Iron Claw Orc with dash. Pretty powerful.
1 red.
And there's another very good red 1-drop that got previewed, another good dash threat.
Yeah.
Gives you a lot of game against sweepers, that's for sure. When you have a threat base composed of a lot of dash creatures, cards like Drown in Sorrow, which used to be just the nail in the coffin for you, now are cards you can work around. This card's very good.
I think this card's really, really good. I know it's a legendary creature. I still think this is a card that you can play a lot of copies of. You know, Isamaru was a card that you played 3 or 4 copies of. I don't think it's out of the question to play 4 copies of this card.
No, I don't think so either. When your opponent's not killing this thing, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
So,
and I am a big fan of the dash mechanic. We've seen it with Mardu Scout a little bit, in red decks. And I think the Mardu Scout is going to be a card that's in red decks for a while. And just the games that you get to play where you have a lot of control over things, to play around cards like Anastasia's Crux of Fate, Anger of the Gods, Drown in Sorrow, that's what kind of separates the good red players from the great ones. And again, there are going to be plenty of games where you just say, all right, I'll play this on turn 1 and hopefully get you for 6 points of damage. That part's easy. Yep. But when to dash and when not to, that part's tough.
No, it's complicated to play with. And, it's... you got to be sculpting out turns in advance once you have a lot of cards like this in your deck. But with that said, getting some game against sorcery speed sweepers, I mean, those are the cards typically that have caused the most problems for mono red decks over the last couple of years. As you mentioned, Anger of the Gods, Drown in Sorrow, the 4-mana sweepers. A card like this would have been so valuable during the Sphinx's Revelation Azoria standard, a card that plays well against Attention Sphere, plays well against Supreme Verdict. It's just a very solid creature. 1 mana, 2 power for red is already, we're there, right? So there is a slight drawback here of being legendary. It's on diminishing returns, but dash is not a small text box to have on a threat like this.
Dash is the kind of ability, you put that on a white creature, I'm coming out of the booth. I'm going down there. I'm in the trenches, man.
A thinking man's beatdown artist.
That's right. Give me an Isamaru with dash, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, it doesn't make sense flavor-wise, don't care.
I don't know, dogs run around. I don't see why not.
See, I like that. You're in my camp. I can appreciate that.
Right. I'm not saying it. It's whatever. It makes enough sense. We play a game where you can put a pair of boots on Riverboa. Lightning Greaves can go on Riverboa. So the ship has sailed for what makes sense flavor-wise. A running dog, that's definitely fine.
That's true. That's true.
They already do that in nature.
Both these players will begin game number 2 here in just a moment. Michael Reilly will be on the play. You're playing an excellent game 1. Not much of a surprise there.
Right.
We'll see if Reilly can even things up.
You play a game like that where you see Yuuya basically exact lethal you, where you had him dead on the way back, and that's why Grand Prix can be different than the games at your local shop. It's not as easy as it is in some other environments.
Temple of Triumph to start things off for Reilly. Mystic Monastery there for Watanabe.
Looks like Yuuya has a fairly slow hand. A couple copies of Treasure Cruise, some copies of Ascendancy.
Here's a Temple of Epiphany. That top card, that one goes to the bottom as well. We'll go back Watanabe's way. Shivan Reef the draw. It is a relatively slow hand there for Watanabe.
But that happens with the token deck. It often gets started on 3. There aren't a lot of 2s. Some removal spells, raise the alarm. If there's any criticism of the deck, it's a little glutted with 3-mana spells.
It's a Battlefield Forge. And it looks like it might be a Ramaz. And it is. So Reilly have to pay 1 to cast it. He's down to 19. He'll pass the turn back. Good threat in this matchup. Demands an answer.
Yep. And Lightning Strike can't handle it, so.
Watanabe draws a 3rd Treasure Cruise. On stable boards or when Watanabe is ahead, that card is a backbreaker in this matchup. But right now, he's got no cards in his graveyard.
Yeah, this might be the type of thing where he needs to cast Ascendancy this turn because his hand is so bad that he needs to start cycling.
He'll sacrifice the Flooded Strand. Take a look at his hand. Figure out what he wants to get. And he's going to go with Hordeling Outburst. He'll have to take one to cast it. Looks like he's going to go with a Plains. Maybe. Might go the island route. He will go the island route. There are 3 goblins, pass the turn back. Reilly will draw.
So in terms of career accomplishments, where does Yuuya Watanabe is using my token rank?
Right up there with the Pro Tour top 8. Like, really close, actually.
1 and 1A, Pro Tour top 8, and now this?
Yeah.
Yeah, Redo asked me to sign a card once, and it's very similar.
Yeah, that's it.
We've hit the ceiling on what this job can offer.
That's right. There's nothing left. I have to go back out and play now.
Yeah. I don't know what I gotta do now. I guess cure cancer? I'm not really, not super sure where I'm even supposed to go from here, you know?
There's an island. Might be Mantis Rider time. And it is.
Pretty solid start here for Reilly.
There's your cat token from Maz. Everybody coming in, and none of them tap to attack.
Team Vigilance.
That's right. So see how Watanabe wants to block if he wants to at all.
No, I think he needs these tokens to leverage the Ascendancy in his hand. I believe he also has Stoke the Flames, so he's just got to take his lumps this turn.
Well, take his lumps he did. He's down to 11. Mystic Monastery, the draw. This feels similar to game 1 where Watanabe was behind and he found a way to claw his way back into it.
I mean, he's in much more dire straits than he was there in game number 1, but I agree with you. This feels like he's going to be clawing his way out of this.
There's Ascendancy. That was the card to let him catch up last time. He'll play Battlefield Forge. Has Stoke the Flames in hand. And so here's what's so tough, because he's trying to walk Reilly into a trap. That's the big plan here. Now, Reilly does have a copy of Abzan Advantage in his hand.
Yeah, that's great. What I really like here is just force the issue on getting Ascendancy off the table and see how Yuuya responds.
Yeah.
Do not go into combat with this man with tricks at the ready.
Here's a Stoke the Flames. Now, they'll have to take one to cast it. But Team Vigilance proving to be very powerful.
Doing some work.
Yeah. And we'll see if this is going to go upstairs or towards a token. Now, I imagine that this is probably going upstairs, but you can certainly make an argument for going towards a token so you don't have to worry about any nonsense on your own turn.
I think with Abzan Advantage, Michael has a way to force the hand before combat.
Sure.
Just show me what's going on, please, right now.
Lightning Strike was the draw. He's coming into the red zone. It's a scary spot. There are your blocks. He'll be convoking a Stoke the Flames. It's going to go after Mantis Rider. Just got Ascendancy trigger. And this is kind of what you talked about on maybe wanting to play Abzan Advantage pre-combat.
Yeah, you at least, if Yuuya just goes, okay, that resolves.
Your turn's so easy.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
Nothing too bad can happen to you. And if Yuuya doesn't have some sort of spell to play here, he's just chump blocking and probably dead in a turn or two.
Yeah.
So I think that I would prefer just to get it off the table as the first order of business, see what's going on over there. And if it's Stoke the Flames, which is the most likely scenario, at least it informs the way that you want to attack that turn.
Because now things don't end up great.
Well, it's not too bad. What Reilly can do here is Lightning Strike away one of the tokens that's blocking Bramaz, Obs on Advantage away the Ascendancy, grow the token that's being blocked by what will now become the 2/2 token, and you deal 1 point of damage, clear off the board. Ascendancy's no longer in play. It's not a horrible turn. You keep your Bramaz as well.
Well, there is Obs on Advantage. So target player sacrifices Enchantment. Target player, of course, is Yuuya Watanabe. Enchantment will be sacrificed. Well, that's Jeskai Ascendancy. Bolster 1. You choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. I agree with you. I would want it to be the one that's being blocked.
Yeah.
You want to get those goblins off of the table.
Now, my preference here would be for Reilly to allow Yuuya to resolve the Ascendancy trigger as the first order of business.
Sure.
Because what he discards is now informed by this pretty weird, specific class of tricks.
Yep. And the fact that he'll have no board now.
Yes. So I think he would have been better served maybe just waiting. It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, Yuuya is just discarding one of these 3 treasure cruises.
Yep.
But once he's committed to casting the spell there and he has the trigger coming across, you might as well just let it resolve. And hopefully he discards the card that he shouldn't based on what's going to happen after the fact.
1 damage comes across. Watanabe's down to 5. He has 4 lands, no board. He'll untap. Does have 2 copies of Treasure Cruise in hand. Draws a card, copy of Temple of Triumph. Also picked up a Raise the Alarm in that exchange.
Well, Raise the Alarm is card number 6 in the graveyard, so he can raise the alarm and cruise. And his hand doesn't really afford him the option to do much else. If he wants to play Raise the Alarm inside of combat, it's not really acting as much of a trick because all you can do is either chump block or trade with tokens that don't really matter. And if he doesn't Raise the Alarm now, none of his lands come to play on tap currently in hand. And so he can't cast the Treasure Cruise.
Yep.
So I think his hand's forced. This is really his only line of play.
Well, there's the Raise. And here's the Cruise. 6 cards dealt away, pay 2 mana, it's a total of 8. 3 cards coming. Temple of Epiphany, Flooded Strand, and a Mountain. He'll play a Temple of Triumph now. Take a look at the top card. He goes to the bottom very quickly. We're heading back Reilly's way. Reilly quickly untapping and taking a draw here. Maybe sensing victory.
I mean, he's close. Yuuya's way behind right now. Stoke the Flames or a couple burn spells. Yuuya really can't handle it right now.
It's an Anger of the Gods. What that does is clear tokens out of the way, but it leaves Bramaz around. Now he gets to attack, puts you down to 1.
This is very good as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, the cat's out of the bag, which is unfortunate for Reilly. I'm sure he would have liked to take that to him with game 3. Yuuya not necessarily knowing about it, but
Watanabe's hand, it's
No
a pretty
good.
bad one. All lands in a Treasure Cruise. He will concede the game. So Michael Reilly's going to win game number 2 here against Yuuya Watanabe. Jeskai aggro, Jeskai tokens. They're heading to a 3rd one.
Yep. Still really scary when Yuuya's deck gets to untap with Ascendancy in play. But after sideboard, Michael Reilly, between his enchantment removal effects, his Glare of Heresy, has a lot more interaction for it. On top of that, he can just anger away Yuuya's entire board, even if Ascendancy's in play. So it's still a harrowing card, but Reilly's a little bit better equipped to handle it once we get to the sideboard of games.
Both these players going to go back to the sideboard. Maybe they'll change some things around. Watanabe will be on the play here. We will talk about the other red card with dash that you spoke of from Dragon's Dark here. It is Lightning Berserker. 1 red, 1/1. Human Berserker. Pale red. Yeah, this is all you, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
This is how you want to do it.
Yeah, I can't handle being in the booth when the Mardu Scouts and Lightning Berserkers and the guy we just previewed, they're all coming down the pipeline.
Oh, the old Zergo Bellstriker.
Now, again, there's only so much of these kind of cards you can play in your deck. You can get bottlenecked with dash creatures. So there's a diminishing return issue, but all the cards are excellent.
These cards are all pretty good anyway.
Yeah, they're all fine to cast, and they're all, the option to dash them is very potent against sorcery speed removal.
Now, this feels a little bit like Stone Right, a little bit, but at the same time, you know, when you're starting to float out a little bit, this is one of the best draws you can have.
Yeah, and, you know, on turn 1, it's going to trade up. Sylvan Caryatid's not going to block this thing very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Dash creatures in general interact very nicely with Foundry Street Denizen. There's a really solid base of red aggressive creatures. Before, you know, I feel like the red decks in Standard were really capitalizing on the fact that mana bases were slow. Players were playing a lot of lanes to come and play tapped. But there's a lot of cards coming down the pipeline where this deck might be able to just hang on objective power level reasons. There's just a lot of good cards.
Yeah. I think red has certainly gotten better with the addition of this and Zergo Bellstriker. And who knows what else is coming. We talked about the big red dragon as well, Thunderbreak region. That could be a helper too if you need to go a little bit bigger.
Great way to top off. Great way to top off your curve.
So I understand. If you resign, I understand.
Yeah, this is
nothing personal. I understand that you got to get while the getting's good.
Right. Because eventually they're going to print some core Firewalker, and I'm going to be coming back to Star City cap in hand, asking for my job back.
And that's
so
fine.
I gotta get in while the getting's good.
Might be in this set. We just haven't seen it yet.
Right. Very well could be.
But red might be on the uptick here. So you and Tom Ross, you guys can collaborate.
Sure.
Get something going.
I would love to.
No model red deck so far in our feature match area.
Not surprising. I think it's, you know, it's pretty far down on the list of decks people are inclined to play. And the red-white aggro list for a lot of people is if you like to play mono red strategies, but you want to have a little more power and a little bit more of a resume, the red-white deck is right there for you.
Yeah, I think so. But with Dragonstark here, we could see it show up. There's also, of course, this take on things. If you don't like red-white, you want a little bit of a blue splash for Mantis Rider or Treasure Cruise. These are both great options in Jeskai aggro and Jeskai tokens. Watanabe, again, played Jeskai tokens at the World Championships to a top 4 finish. Really the breakout deck and breakout player of that tournament.
Oh, I remember watching the coverage, reading his deck list, and thinking this is just a masterpiece.
Yeah.
This deck is so good, so well built.
Michael Reilly trying to beat the master at work. He's got 1 game left. But he's on the draw against Jeskai tokens, which is always a scary place to be.
Yeah, but getting that game, you know, it really can help you feel more comfortable in these kind of matches where, you know, the stakes are high, your match is being covered, the player you're playing against has an incredible resume, and, you know, getting some feeling of mortality on the other side of the table can be really good for settling your nerves.
Yeah, you know, it's just when you're playing against a player of his caliber, it's always stressful might not be the right word, but it's just always a situation where I know you like to say that, you know, you're playing Magic just like them, but, you know, you're playing against one of the best players, if not the best player in the world.
Right, and there's people on the rail, you know, and he knows this match is being commented on right now, and there's, you know, thousands and thousands of people watching. If you allow the trappings to get to you, the match can be much more challenging, much more stressful than it needs to be. And of course, you need to take 2 games off of someone, but I think taking the first one is the harder thing to do. But Mike Riley's also from Central Jersey, so he don't scare easy.
Thanks.
Just like to remind everyone at home.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes us all want to go to Jersey, I guess. Mystic Monastery to start things off. Here's a temple for Reilly. Take a look at that top card. It'll go to the bottom. We're heading Watanabe's way. Goblin Rabble match to the draw. Another Mystic Monastery, kick it back. Seeker of the Way, the draw step here for Reilly.
And Yuuya with Wild Slash and Goblin Rabble Master, and this is the really punching sequence of break serve, take out your play, and get Rabble Master on a stable board potentially.
You see, Wild Slash has changed so much because Slash is there. And then if he has a 3rd land and enters battlefield on tapping, he just drew a plane. So I don't know if he had it to start, but he's got it now. There's Route Master. Now all of a sudden, your back's against the wall. You have to have an answer for this thing because it can just be a runaway.
And then if you have an answer to this and start playing the slower game, well then cards like Ascendancy and Treasure Cruise start becoming big factors. This deck can beat you up front or it can beat you on the back end, which is part of the reason it's so potent.
Now that was a big draw for Reilly because he actually drew a Wild Slash. So he actually has the ability to Wild Slash, play a land in Shivan Reef, and then deploy another Seeker of the Way potentially or leave up a Lightning Strike.
Yeah.
So that was huge for him. But here's the thing, you don't want to get too cute in situations like this. You know, you don't want to say, you know, I'm going to kill it on your turn, your attack step, because think about what Reilly did to Watanabe in game 1 with Valor Stance. That's an option. We have seen Jeskai Tokens decks play a card like God's Willing before. Those are all options. Now, Reilly is playing a Seeker of the Way with Wild Slash and Hand, saying, you know what, I'm going to I'm going to make this 3-3. I'm going to do my thing. And you know what? You're playing against one of the best players, not the best player in the world. Not sure how well that's going to work. Wild Slashers are going to trade here.
I mean, this is not the end of the world. If you had some way to protect the Rabble Master, the game's over.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
As it stands, it's the same thing as if he had just main phased the removal spell. No big deal.
Mantis Rider the draw. Plains is land number 4. Reilly will have to take 1 to cast a 3/3 flyer. But he'll do just that. Now we're coming into the red zone for 3. It's 17 all. We head back Watanabe's way. Watanabe will quickly untap and take a draw here. You see the Wild Slash in hand. He's got a Sarkin as well now.
Yeah,
what he doesn't have is a 4th land.
Yuuya's gone a little bit bigger here. I didn't know if he was going to go all the way up to threats like Sarkin, but he's anticipating a much longer game.
Stoke the Flames will take care of the Mantis Rider. Here's a Temple of Epiphany for Reilly. Top card, going to the bottom. The place where Watanabe is favored in this match is that when things do get into kind of a grindy state, he has 4 Treasure Cruisers where Reilly doesn't. Now here's another copy of Mantis Rider. That's 3 more points of damage. Watanabe's going to quickly untap. He'll take a draw step here. This copy of Whirling Outburst, pretty gosh darn good draw. Because now he's able to deploy this. 3 more Goblins on the way, and then cast Stoke the Flames to get the Mantis Rider off the table.
You know, a run-of-the-mill turn. Seemed better. And this is a spot, if I'm Yuuya, I'm also just casting this thing straight away. You've seen Valorous Stance. Negates and Disdainful Strokes should easily be in your opponent's sideboard. You don't want to take another shot from this Mantis Rider.
Just thinking about it, though. And he will use the Stoke right now. I'll take care of the Mantis Rider. We head back Reilly's now. Reilly does have 2 copies of Treasure Cruise in his main deck, and he also has 2 copies of Outpost Siege, so he does have card drawing and card advantage engines. He just doesn't have 4 copies of Treasure Cruise.
Right. In this spot, Yuuya's got more oomph. Reilly does have some big 4 and 5 mana plays pretty naturally in this deck. You know, we saw Stormbright Dragon game 1, but in terms of the card advantage war, Yuuya is favored from here.
Rebel Master makes a Goblin token, comes across for 1. We'll head back Watanabe's way. You see a Treasure Cruise in his hand, Stoke the Flames to draw. It's getting ugly out here.
I think we might just see yet another run-of-the-mill turn of something like Wild Slash, Ancestral Recall, attack you for a bunch. Just a bunch of run-of-the-mill turns for this deck.
It really is. Watanabe going to go this route first. He's going to cruise first. So he's going to draw 3 cards.
My mistake. Not Ancestral Recall.
There's a Shivan Reef. Now, what's important there for Watanabe is he picked up a couple of lands, because that was really the only missing piece of the puzzle. There's a Slash. That'll take care of the Rabble Master. Perhaps it's time to get into the red zone now.
You can see Reilly's hand. I almost wonder if he took out his copies of Ascendancy and just went big, with Reilly showing Obs on advantage.
Yeah, sure. He did go back to the drawing board for game 3.
Yeah. Because I believe, if I saw correctly, the Rabble Masters were in his sideboard at the beginning of game 2.
In for 3.
And I really like you holding back 1 token here. His hand's so much more powerful. He doesn't exactly know what's going on with Michael's hand, but Reilly's been spinning his tires now for a couple turns, and I'm sure he's happy to trade, just get to land number 5 and start just deploying some of his powerful stuff.
Given Watanabe's hand right now, the longer we go, the better it is for him.
Not just his hand, but his deck.
Yeah.
I think he's also just better set up for a later game.
Now Reilly's just going to hold back with the Goblin token, so now Watanabe's going to get to untap those 4 lands, take a draw. It's a Plains. Starting to flood out a touch on lands here, but he'll play that Plains. He'll deploy Sarkin the Dragon Speaker. And now it's time to go to the skies, it seems. It'll go up to 5. We'll see just how aggressive Watanabe wants to get here. Still going to hold a Goblin token back. Still like that play, too.
Yeah, and this is 7 damage this turn and then 7 damage next turn. Yep. 7 times 2 is 14. Reilly's at 13.
Yes,
so
sir.
He can be safe this turn while still applying lethal pressure over the course of this turn and next. The mixture, there's the quality of play in both strategy and tactics is such a dangerous combination. Yuuya both knows his role in the matchup and what's going on the ground. Doing a very good job of navigating the math, and I don't know, it's very hard to beat players who are extremely good at doing both.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And he is one of the very best. Reilly going to block here. But he's still going to take 6. He's going to go down to 7, and Watanabe conveniently has 7 points of power on the table.
Yeah, it's almost like he drew it up like that. And Michael Reilly with a lightning strike in hand, no real good targets. A glare of heresy, literally no targets.
Yep.
And so it goes.
Watanabe's draw is a temple. There's an activation. It's an attack for 7. Lightning strike's going to go after a token. Reilly's going to go down to 1. A temple, a trigger. Watanabe does have Stoke the Flames just in case. He may just hold tight here. No real reason to cast it, and that is going to get the job done. Yuuya Watanabe is going to take care of Michael Reilly 2 games to 1. Jeskai tokens will take care of Jeskai aggro. And for one of, if not the best players in the world, great start to the tournament, 6-0.
And, I don't know if there was a lot to be done that game. From Reilly's perspective, I feel like the battle was mostly lost during sideboarding, where it looked like Yuuya had a much better setup there. I think that game 1